Okay, so first off, thank you for coming to the seminar today. My name is Jonathan Leung, and the man to my left is Tim Peterson. We do YouTube videos, podcasts, blog posts, smoke signals, all dealing with arcade repair. And so if you guys have seen our videos, hopefully we haven't bored you to death and you've learned a little something from them at some point. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a little seminar. We'll tell you who we are, then we'll go over some recently asked questions that we found very interesting. Now you'll notice that the name of the seminar is Help, My Arcade Game Sounds Like a Tattoo Gun. There is a question that we actually got with that title, and so that's why we're using that as the title of the seminar today. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Tim, and we'll go over a little bit of our history, who we are, and how we got started doing all of this. So,
well, good morning, everybody. How many of you guys have seen our videos or listened to our podcast, stuff like that? So thank you guys for coming. A little bit about our history, you know, in 2001. Well, we're just going to look at, what happened was I went to Best Buy to buy a computer. Everybody, about 2001, really, you know, those fast, real mega processors were coming out. Pentium 4s, you know, have been released, and so I had to upgrade. And what I really wanted to do was to upgrade my computer so I could take my old PC, which still worked, and run MAME on it, right? So met Jonathan at Best Buy there, and Jonathan was a young teenager working at the time, and he was working through college, I believe. And so anyway, we got to talking, and he's like, well, you know, I was like, I know I could wire up a MAME, but I don't know if I could run the software. And he's like, well, I could do the software stuff, but so, you know, we're having this peanut butter and chocolate moment here. And about that time, you know, we realized, wow, we could do this and make a good team together. So we began to build a MAME cabinet. And that's us down in the corner with our first MAME that we built, 4-player, you know, lots of buttons and joysticks.
That is being a Best Buy shirt, by the way, when I worked there. I had come off work when we took that picture.
Yeah, I guess Best Buy is like in Georgia, right?
No.
Minnesota. Minnesota, wow. No Best Buys here?
Best Buy's here, but I mean they're...
Oh, they're based, yeah, but I mean, they're around, right? Okay, so we're not speaking a foreign language. You know, you travel across the country sometime, we're talking about Dairy Queen, you guys are, what are you talking about? Whataburger, you know, they're like, huh? But anyway, so we, of course, Jonathan is, I'm more hardware, he's more software, and but together we've always made good friends and a good team. So Jonathan immediately said, well, we're going to let's do a web page, you know, and I'm like, oh, I've seen one of those before, you know, and, you know, okay, well, we took some pictures and we made basically a page on restoration. If you go back to what our heart is, it really was restoring games, because you guys remember that era, really, when games, we go to auction, remember those? They used to have auctions all the time, and we go to auction and you sign this beat up old Pac-Man for 50 bucks, and we'd go home and we'd put Bondo and glue and tape and everything, and we'd fix it up, and then, you know, we'd sell it or whatever we wanted to do. So we made a lot of pictures and blogs and stuff on restoring games, and then you know, we thought, well, we've got all these games we fixed up. What are we going to do with them? All right, and of course, like every young person or anybody that's ever gotten a business, how many of you ever thought, man, I could put this in a location and make some money? All right? Everybody's had this dream at least once, or at least this idea. You thought you were just going to get rich overnight. The best memory ever is the one, y'all see the one floating around Facebook now that says, you know how to be a millionaire in our business? Start off a billionaire. If you start off a billionaire, you'll be a millionaire really soon. So we started Varcade Entertainment. And Varcade, the word there means virtual arcade room. VAR is how we came up with that. We also knew that nobody else had it or wasn't going to come up with it but us, so we used the word Varcade, because what we would do is not only would we build MAME, we also put music videos and stuff on our MAME machine, so that we called it the virtual arcade room in one machine. So that's where we come up with the name Varcade. And we started operators, and we began to put games in local, like Game Exchange and places like that. And then we actually did the really crazy thing, and we opened up a restaurant with a good friend of mine, and we had about 40 plus games. We had pinballs and arcades, and we had them everywhere. It was kind of fun because one of my best friends opened this restaurant. We had a pizza and hamburgers place, and everybody said we can't have pizza and hamburgers, and we did, and we didn't care. And we had games everywhere. If you'd sit down, there was a table, and in between there would be a cocktail table, then another table, and then there might be a pinball game in the corner. Then in the back room there was 3 more video games, and then we had a game room. So they were just everywhere. And we had so much fun with that. We spent a whole year in business. And that was great till the city of Tyler decided we're going to put medians in all the roads. And so all the turning lanes, we're not going to have turning lanes anymore. We're just going to have a median. So if you want to get to your restaurant, you got to go about a mile down and do a U-turn. That worked out great for us. Also, they tore the culverts up and said, by the way, nobody's going to be able to get in your restaurant for about 3 weeks. And how many of you ever been in the restaurant business? Go 3 weeks without income, pay everybody, that works out great, right? So we decided that instead of just emptying out every bank account and everything that we ever had, we would close that thing down. And so then we would begin to sell off all these games that we had that were really cool games. I'm trying to think of some of the games that we had. Starblade was a fun one. Anybody ever played Starblade? We had a global VR. We had a Twister pinball game in there. We had what else was that? Flash pinball. I mean, we had something from every era. We had crane machines, gumball machines. So we began to liquidate very quickly. And so after that, I'm not quite as old as I look, but I'm not as young either. And I decided, I don't know if I can repair games forever. So we are gonna. Actually, what happened was somebody asked me how to do something, and I said, well, I think they were wanting to know how to discharge a monitor. I said, well, here's how you do it. And I'm talking anodes and sticking screwdrivers up in here, and then all of a sudden I'm realizing this person really does not understand, and I don't know that I want them just sticking a screwdriver everywhere. So I think I shot a video and put it up, and I thought, then all of a sudden they were like, oh, well, that's easy. And I thought, wow, had not somebody ever shown me, right? Some stuff's just so simple, but had nobody ever shown me how to take a lock off a game, I would not know how. And so about that time, a little company started coming along called YouTube, and I believe they're still in business today. They've done okay. Mark Cuban may have had something to do with that one, but anyway, so we started shooting videos, and just what we would do is we would go into the game room, and whatever we were going to repair that day, we'd shoot a video on it. And then pretty soon we'd get a request, say, hey, would you show us how to do that and how to do this? And so, here we are today, right? Because most of you guys have seen our videos. We tried to keep them simple. Y'all might remember videos or any kind of repair guides. Anybody come in about 10 years ago or more? You ever watch one of those videos? I'm not going to mention any names.
RF.
Yeah. I'm just saying that very, very technical, very dry, and so we're like, we don't want to be those guys. And then we go on KLV. Anybody ever been on KLV? Anybody ever got blasted on KLV for asking a simple question? Or just, and so what we decided was, we don't want to be those guys. We want to be helpful, and if it's simple, hey, it's simple. But I didn't want people calling out a repair guy. Man, we got some stories, Did we put one in today? We thought about putting one of the questions in where somebody was charged an exorbitant amount of money. Is it in the...
It was $600 to repair a multi-game like a 60-in-1. $600 bill to repair a 60-in-1. So I'm going to take it real quick. Tim is great, but we're going to move along really fast. I want to get to questions too.
Okay.
So go ahead. And...
All right, we'll wrap that up. So here we are today, and now we're going to go on to talk about...
Here, I'll go over this real fast, and then we'll kind of work in. So we were founded in 2008. That was 8 years ago, and it doesn't seem like it's been that long. when we look back on it, but it has been. Since then, we posted over 50 blog posts and YouTube videos on coin-op repair and restoration. We recorded over 60 audio podcasts answering questions from the audience, and we released 4 DVDs with additional content in our online store. Of course, you can buy one today if you want to. So we will give you that. So if you want to buy one today, please let us know. We'll give you a discount on them. So we have some here up at the front. We take credit cards too. So, okay, this is a disclaimer. What we say today may or may not be correct, and we don't take any responsibility for it. So we'll just put that up there for a second.
Put that food driver in that monitor.
Exactly. We are not responsible for anything, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is just something that we have to put up here for the lawyers. But, I mean, really, in all honesty, you want to be careful with this stuff, guys. You can get hurt, you can get harmed if you do it wrong. So we try our best to give the most accurate description of what we're trying to do. Sometimes, you know, we fail at that, but hopefully we do better most of the time than not. So, okay. So if you saw the outline, you'll notice that we're going to go over some recently asked questions. So these are all questions from people like you who have sent into our website or our email or any other of the ways that we receive messages, which come in a variety of forms. And so this one here is a power supply issue with asteroids. So I'll go ahead and read the question, and Tim, I'll let you take over the repair end of it. So this is from Brian. And is Brian here? No? Good. Okay. Hey guys, love your site. I have some games that used to be on location when I was in the business. Now they are just in my basement for the grandkids. I'm having problems with my asteroids. Please don't recommend Preparation H. I went through the tutorial on checking the power supply and I'm getting ready to perform those procedures, but I was curious if you ever talk on the phone with a customer to walk through a repair sequence. I'd be happy to pay for your time, of course. Looking forward to hearing back from you. Regards, Brian. Now, since Brian was so apt to give us that illustration, I just had to show you that. I don't know why. I felt like, oh, we'll put it in there. So maybe that's the way you fix this problem, right? Okay, maybe it is. Tim, is this the way that we fix this problem?
No. No, we do not put Preparation H on asteroids. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't smell good either. So we don't usually talk to people on the phone, which is rare. I mean, you guys understand. It's funny when we post a video, most people think we're just sitting around an office somewhere. Everybody understands we got regular jobs, families, things like that. But we do have a voicemail hotline. People call, and sometimes for fun, we'll be sitting there working on something in a ring, and we'll just pick it up. I'm not Jack Maneri. I don't answer the phone every time. So, but we do things that we do when we check for voltages on a power supply connectors. One of our favorite sayings is do the ASAP approach, right? Always start where? I'll start at power, right? So we start at power, check the fuses, check the big blue capacitor, check voltages on the AR1 board, rebuild cap kit from Bob Roberts. And we have a video on checking a classic power supply. It works much better in Preparation H.
Yes, it does. And the AR1 board is found in most asteroids games, so I mean, it's a Atari audio regulator board. Very common. That rebuild kit from Bob Roberts solves a lot of problems, okay? And basically it's a cap kit like Tim mentioned for the most part. And you just replace all those parts that come in that kit that are on the board, and a lot of times that'll get you back up and running, depending on what the problem is. Every so often you'll have a problem with Big Blue. It doesn't happen as often as people think. A lot of times people will replace that first and they won't have to, they'll be like, oh, it's still broken, right? I mean, because they replaced it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your problem. It goes bad from time to time, but it's kind of rare. I don't think we've seen it very often where it's actually gone bad, but it has happened. I mean, that being said, I mean, just like transformers. We rarely see a transformer go out, but it's happened. I mean, you know, you see stuff like that happen. So, I mean, these are just some tips that you can do. If you guys have asteroids, anybody have an asteroids at home? Great. Asteroids is a great game, and it's a lot of fun. And it's not bad to keep working, actually, of all of the classic games. You can keep it working pretty well. So, okay, I guess we'll go on to the next one? Yeah. Okay. Don't worry, there will be time at the end for your questions. I forgot that. There will be time at the end for questions. Okay. So, okay, here's another question that we received, and this one's replacing a monitor in a gun game. So light gun games, get a lot of questions on light gun games. We shot a video on light gun games because of the questions we get. So this one's from Adam. I purchased a big buck hunter with no screen. What screen should I be looking at as a replacement? Okay, so a lot of people would be looking to get this because, you know, it's a nice 26 open frame LCD. This is kind of the new hotness, right? Well, the problem with light gun games,
looks awesome.
Looks awesome, yeah, absolutely, is that they don't work with the 26-inch LCDs. Unfortunately, they don't work with LCDs, period, because of the way that the light reflects off the monitor, the optical sensor, and all that kind of stuff just doesn't work. And so there's some other things that you need to do if you're going to be replacing that monitor. Tim?
Right. You have to use a CRT in order for the light guns to work on those type of games. And how many you know that's getting really hard to find? And in fact, I highly recommend if you got gun games that you stock up because I don't think they'll be making that stuff much more. But 25, 27-inch CRT monitors, some of them are still available. I know people buying them in bulk because they're worried that they won't. Maybe there'll still be a market enough out there. You might be able to get a tube, like from a TV or something. How do you know if the tube will work in your game? Anybody know? Go ahead.
You open it up.
Right. Open up the tube.
And then you have to test the yoke.
Right, you have to test the yoke. One of the first things to do, one of the obvious things we always tell people is got to have the same number of pins and got to fit. If you don't fit, take it. Don't worry about it. Don't even worry about going any further, right? But after that, yes, we check the impedance and things of the monitor.
If the neck board don't fit, you must quit.
Right, you must quit.
Yeah.
LCD monitors work fine with games that use potentiometer-based guns like the Terminator 2 today. A lot of Sega games, you know, those big sit-down games you play, they use a potentiometer based, and so if you're building a game, or you can actually go to that, all it does is pretty much use X and Y to know where you are on the screen. So that may be, but we do have another video on troubleshooting games with light gun issues. Most of the times it's usually something pretty simple. But boy, it's easy to buy a light gun game cheap a lot of times because there's a bunch of them out there not working, right? So that'd be my advice, is to stock up on your guns for gun games.
Absolutely. One thing Tim didn't mention here is that they do have universal replacement chassis. We're not big fans of them because they're usually put together pretty shoddily, I mean, to be honest with you. But if you need something up and working, because we used to be operators and that was, you know, the important thing, it might be easier to just get the replacement chassis than it would be, or chassis, or whatever, than it would be to find a whole new monitor or to buy a whole new monitor. And so if you go on even eBay or some of these different parts sellers, they will sell you a universal chassis. It works with pretty much every monitor, and you can email them with your tube readings and things like that. They'll tell you if it works, but they're kind of designed to work with any kind of tube you might have in your game. So I mean, that's always an option to you. Not the best option. We'd probably recommend a replacement before you really do that, or a tube replacement or something like that. But it just depends on what you guys are looking at as far as, you know, replacement costs and things like that. Yes?
If you have another, you know, a classic game that came with the CRT, but you need to replace that, and it's not doesn't require a gun, like a Robotron.
Sure.
What are the options for replacing that?
So the question is like, what if I have a Robotron and I want to replace it with an LCD? Wells Gardner, same people who made the monitors originally, still make monitors now. They make a 19-inch replacement LCD that's compatible with 15 kilohertz, which is usually like what games like Robotron would use. And so that's basically a drop-in replacement for your monitor. So you can get that, and it should drop in no problem. Now, you can also use an off-the-shelf LCD, but the problem is a lot of times they do not support the 15 kilohertz that games put out. In that case, you will need to get a video converter board of some sort in order to do that, okay? We don't recommend that because a lot of times it does cause a little bit of a delay in the controls. In a game like Robotron, you don't want any delay. I mean, you know, that's very reflex-oriented and stuff. So from that perspective, we would probably recommend getting the Wells Gardner 19-inch LCD replacement if you want to go LCD.
Or buy a used CRT.
Or buy a used CRT.
Please do that first before getting an LCD.
Yeah. We like to keep games as original as possible, those who know. So, I mean, in our perspective, if there's a collector around you who has an extra LCD or CRT monitor around, you might want to look at that avenue first. I understand, though, LCDs look very sharp, and for people who don't like scan lines, which I think is appealing, you know, an LCD looks really great in your game, and it does give a good picture.
We have replaced several hundred monitors and maybe 2 tubes. To give you an idea. I mean, people all the time, oh, your tube is bad. Well, it's normally in the chassis, which you can still send off and get repaired or repair yourself. So that's all obviously the way that we're going to recommend it. Also, you guys know what I'm talking about. You ever played a game look too good? Yeah. They get that LCD monitor and it just looks too good. It doesn't, and so you lose a little bit of that feel of the game. It's just like playing a Tron without a Tron joystick and just a regular joystick. I mean, you can play it, it just doesn't feel right. So I think from the true collector in me says if you can keep it original. Now, sadly, sometimes that's just not an option. And another thing to think about when you buy an LCD off the shelf, what is every LCD at Best Buy that you're going to buy come with a remote, right? They don't always have the option to power on. And that's kind of a pain too, to turn on your game, go get the remote, open up the, you know, get to where you can turn it on. And So we've had to do that at Chuck E. Cheese. Sometimes we will take and wire up an extra button, and it just gets real ghetto quick. So you know, if you don't have, if you do an LCD screen, I would recommend that you buy an arcade quality one, an open frame, from one of the reputable dealers, because they do automatically come on with the game. There are some advantages in that. People ask, well, I'll just go down to, you know, XYZ store and get one. It's not going to work quite the same if you do have to go to LCD monitor, or you want to. Everybody's got a preference, right? So make sure that, I would highly recommend that you actually buy one made for arcade games.
And we should say that, I mean, we do prefer CRTs, but we understand there's going to come a time where finding a CRT is going to be almost impossible. Right now, we can still find them. There's people around you that will still have them, but I mean, at what point are we going to be digging through it's going to take digging through like a landfill basically to find a CRT that's going to be able to work, and it's like, how much trouble do you want to go to? So I mean, it's
now there's some guys out there can repair the monitor.
Yeah, they can. You can repair it too, but man, it's a process and it can be expensive. You know, depending on who you want, they have to repressurize. There's all the stuff that goes into it. So I mean, from our perspective, but like Tim said, tubes rarely go out. Most of the time, it's going to be your monitor chassis. And even if you're not familiar with fixing it yourself, if you don't want to fix it yourself, there are several people we can recommend to you. You can ship it off to. They'll ship it back, and then you just put it in, it'll work. So, okay, we're going to move along here. Okay, so this is the one why we titled the seminar what it is. This question says, weird noise coming from monitor, and this is from Nick. So the little question, that's usually what's in the subject line. So this one actually said, weird noise coming from monitor. Nick writes in, and he says, I am looking at buying a Golden T2002. The screen is black, and is making a noise similar to what a tattoo gun would make. Any help would help. Thanks, Nick. So any help would help. I like that.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. How many people know what a tattoo gun sounds like? Hopefully, everybody has a little bit. Kind of a weird,
Like, I don't know, John.
kind of a weird buzzing sound. And I actually have like a little gift. I don't think we can actually hear it, unfortunately, because I'm not hooked up to the speakers. But I mean, it gets the zzz, you know, and it kind of, as you hit the skin, it makes a little bit more of a deeper kind of hum sound to that. And so apparently they can sound the same sometimes, Tim. So with that in mind, if my arcade game sounds like a tattoo gun, what do I need to do to fix it?
Well, you know, you always consider the source, right? So what part of the game is this coming from? And you know, a good repair guy, and how many of you know, as you're getting better at repairing games, most of the times you learn to hear with your ears more than your eyes sometimes. You can hear a game, or you know where it's coming from. If you'll see some of the old school technicians will actually have a stethoscope. Everybody ever seen a guy with a stethoscope? That's why, because they can pinpoint where it's coming from. One thing that can sound like that would be the flyback going out. And so if your game is sounding like a tattoo gun, that's a good time to do some repair and not keep playing it, okay? So it's kind of that electrical arcing sound. You guys are probably familiar with that. We've had some fun flyback stories over the years, but so sometimes you can repair with some silicone and a temporary thing. I noticed that a lot of guys are starting to write in, we're having a really hard time finding a replacement flyback, right? Those are starting to get pretty rare. So, you know, we don't always recommend doing it that way, but if it's just a crack that will hold for a little while, but of course you need to replace it at that time. If it's cracking, splitting open, it's a good time to start thinking about repair. So anyway, we have a fun video that we shot. Probably one of the most sought or watched videos is games that are troubleshooting games that are playing blind. And how many know what we mean when we say a game is playing blind, right? Or we're playing blind or something like that. But anyway, so that probably answers that question. What a funny way to put it, you know. And
well, I was going to say, in the video we actually show electrical arcing coming from the flyback, so you guys can actually see what it looks like, what it sounds like. If you hear that noise, please turn off your game immediately. It's just a really good rule of thumb. Just turn it off, and you know, start looking at what the problem may be. We've had flyback catch fire, okay, and that's not an exaggeration. It has actually caught fire before. We had a joust that every time you turn it on, whoosh, yeah, what, yeah?
Through a hot
flame. Every time you throw the
cigarette
flame
lighter
up.
this long.
Exactly, and so, you know, obviously if you're getting that, please replace. And like Tim said, very hard to get some flybacks for certain monitors, so if you are having a hard time finding the flyback for your monitor, you might use some steel or some silicone. Last night, Tim mentioned Hubba Bubba works really well on those holes. If you want to, if you're in a pinch, don't use it. Okay, but anyway, so if your game sounds like a tattoo gun, please turn it off immediately and start looking usually at your monitor chassis. It can come from other parts, but that we've seen it. Yeah, well, hopefully you fixed the problem. He will be emailing him shortly. So all of these are very recent. This is within like the last month we've gotten these questions. So, can I click? There we go. Okay, so here's another one, and this one is fixing a broken monitor light bulb. Okay, help from Cynthia. My husband had his Philips monitor, model number here, face down on the floor. There's a part sticking straight up. I think it's a light bulb. I hit it and heard it shattered. I haven't touched it. Is it possible to replace a light bulb in a monitor, or did I break something that cannot be fixed? Any help is appreciated. Now, this is why you should listen to our podcast if you're not already, because we get questions like this all the time, and they're very entertaining. So with this one here from Cynthia, obviously fixing a broken monitor light bulb. Tim, what's going on here with Cynthia's light bulb?
They're no longer married.
They're no longer married, is that?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned with Cynthia hitting it. You know, was this a fight? I don't know.
Well, she said she hit it and then she didn't touch it, right? She hit it, but she didn't touch it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what it said?
I don't know,
hang on,
but
let me see here. I hit it and heard it shatter. I haven't touched it.
Right. Okay, so of course she's talking about the tube, but I want you guys to, you know, we're being a little lighthearted, but we know what she's talking about, but at some point you didn't know either, right? You had to learn what this was. So this was the tube, of course, and you know where it lights up. A lot of times we'll ask people, are you getting any net glow? Okay, so if your game is playing blind, but you're getting net glow, what is that telling us?
No signal.
You could be several things right there. At least you know you're getting some power going through the monitor, but you're not always getting a picture.
In this picture here, I just put this up here, Tim, real quick. The monitor on the left here, that's what you see traditionally in your game. You're going to see the tube, you see the frame, you'll see a monitor chassis hooked up. The picture on the right here is just the tube. That's even with the yoke removed. So it's just a tube. And so the only reason I did this was to show you that it can kind of look like a light bulb with all the stuff removed and everything. And it could be that her husband just had a tube lying out like this and no yoke, no nothing, and he might have been doing maybe a tube swap or something like that. And so it kind of does look like a light bulb. I mean, I think that was a pretty apt description on her part, to be honest with you, because I mean, she didn't know it was a tube, obviously. So
I think from now on, we're just going to call it light bulb. So from now on, if you watch or listen to podcasts and we talk about the light bulb, you guys will know what we're talking about. We can go on to the next one. I think there's probably not much more we can say about that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it does sound like maybe she cracked the neck.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you hear a hissing sound,
right.
not good. So it could be that she cracked the neck. You can get CRT, you can get the actual tubes repaired, but expensive, hard to find people. Sometimes you have to ship it, and those things are heavy. So as a whole, I mean, unless you're just in love with this tube, but this is like the most fantastic tube ever, no screen burn whatsoever, I would not recommend getting an actual tube fixed. Okay, and you can find replacement tubes, they're out there. So, I mean, you're better off doing that. And like we said, best option, find a replacement tube. And then junknet.net, if you guys haven't been there, there's a great article that has donor tubes and things like that, so you can get a replacement tube for your game. So, I mean, that's what we'd recommend. Try to find a replacement for it.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Question 5. What kind of monitor do I have? And this one's from Jim. He says, I have an old arcade machine. How can I tell what kind of monitor I have? VGA or CRT? Now, the problem here is, I mean, Jim knows enough to know at least what some of these things are, but he's not real sure. I mean, because of the way that the question is phrased here, we can kind of tell. So the thing is it could be both, right? Now, he says an old arcade machine, so it's probably not both.
But as old as we're thinking. Right?
Exactly. I mean, if we're thinking old, then we're probably not. It probably is not both. But just for an illustration, for those of you who are familiar with the D9200 or the new MagVision monitors, those are VGA and CRT. So what do we mean by this? What's all these little letters and things mean? So CRT, cathode ray tube, or just tube. A lot of times we'll just call it the tube. Most common in older arcade games, usually very heavy and large in size. Okay, when we think old TVs, we think CRTs. So VGA, video graphics array, can refer to a plug. There's a blue VGA 15-pin plug you guys have probably seen on computers and things like that. Or it can refer to a resolution, 640 by 480, 31 kilohertz. This is a lot of times what we think of when we think of VGA. Okay, so they're not really the same. It's not like it's kind of apples and oranges that we're comparing here when we say VGA, CRT, and things like that. So, like we said, it could be both. It could be VGA and CRT. Tri-Sync monitors a lot of times, which is what we see a lot of now with the Magvisions and stuff. They'll support everything. They'll support CRT, or excuse me, CGA, EGA, VGA, 15 kilohertz, 25 kilohertz, and 31 kilohertz. I know I'm talking like this. Let's talk about it for a second. 15 kilohertz is what we call standard resolution. Vast majority of games use standard resolution. So if you go to KLOV and you look up your game, it'll tell you usually what that, whatever the resolution is for your game. 25 kilohertz is medium resolution. It's used mostly in newer games. There are some older games that use it, but games that come to mind would be Blitz, Rush the Rock. If you guys are familiar with newer 90s games, a lot of times 25. So I think Tubin had one too. Yeah, Tubin had one. So 31 kilohertz, of course, is more closer to that VGA type resolution like we were talking about. And I think he might have been talking about LCD. Like, do I have a CRT or an LCD? Because then we're kind of comparing apples and apples right there. And so, you know, of course, LCD, liquid crystal display, this is what we know now as the new display standard. It's pretty much what, you know, in all your houses you probably have LCD televisions, I imagine. So, I mean, so in his question, he's got an older arcade game, Tim, probably not going to be VGA at all. Probably will have probably CRT, but we're probably looking at something that's what we call standard resolution, or 15 kilohertz. And all that means is just a signal that comes from the board to the monitor. That's all it is. So, I mean, you know, like I said, 70% of games, 80% of games use standard resolution.
But you can see our trouble answering some of these questions. What didn't he tell us? What the game was? For all we know, it might have been a Seawolf, right? And he might have an old black and white in there. Well, you understand, so when you do send questions in, it really helps if you let us know what game in particular. He just says old arcade game, and that describes all my childhood.
They're all old now.
Yeah, they're all old.
Even the ones from the 90s. You guys realize the stuff from the 90s now is 16 years old, even if it came out in 99, right? Or 17 years old.
Right.
So anyway. Okay, this one's our last recently asked question here. This is from James, and after this we'll take some questions from the audience. But here we go. Which machine to start with? Hi, I recently got a bunch of games for $100. A Baby Pack, Joust, Centipede, Stargate, and Space Duel. Naturally, none of them are working. They need to be cleaned from top to bottom. Which one is the easiest to work on? Which one should I start with first? Thanks. Okay, so for those collectors in the room, let's take inventory. Okay, what do we have? Oh, what was that? Anyway, we have a Baby Pac-Man, Joust, Centipede, Stargate, and Space Duel for $100. Okay, and you guys watch game shows in the 80s. There's this one, it was called a Sale of the Century. This guy got it, okay? This guy got the Sale of the Century, literally. Okay, but of course that's not his question, did he get a good deal, okay? I can answer that all day long. You got a great deal, okay? Is that Trump? You got a great deal. Anyway, but he got a great deal on the games. His question was, which one does he start with first? So let's take a poll before we talk about what we did. Okay, Baby Pac-Man. How many of you think that Baby Pac-Man would be the easiest one in the bunch to work on first? No? Okay, no takers, no hands.
0 points.
0%, okay. Let's take, I'm going to take the one on the far end. Space Duel? Not bad. I mean, it's not bad at all. Now, since Joust and Stargate are kind of similar, Joust, Stargate. Got a couple of hands? I think you see a couple of hands. And then Centipede, the one in the middle. Centipede?
Centipede.
Okay, I think we got the most for Centipede. Okay, so let's take a look at, like I said, let's inventory this for a second. So some of you in the audience are like, what are you guys talking about? You might not be familiar with the machines. So let's talk about the machines for a second. A Baby Pac-Man is half pinball, half video game, and it's very hard to get parts for it. It's kind of like a Jaguar. If you have one, you better have another one, so you can round parts from it. Baby Pac-Man, I mean, I love to play it. Actually, I think it's fun. A lot of people don't like it. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. But it's very frustrating to work on, anybody who's worked on one. So, now Space Duel is actually not that bad. It's a Atari Color Vector, Wells Gardner 6100, very common monitor in those. It's a single board, and it uses the AR2 regulator board, which are pretty easy to work on. So, I mean, you can start with Space Duel, and I think you'd be okay. The problem is that Color Vector, there's just not as much information as there are about roster monitors out there, okay? Vector monitors are actually not terrible to work on, but there's just a lot of information about roster monitors just because so many games use them. What we mean by vector and roster, vectors usually have the little lines. So, I mean, if you get asteroids like we were talking about before, it's a vector monitor, okay? Black and white, of course, but a vector monitor. And so, you know, whereas roster monitors have graphics and sprites and all this kind of stuff. And so it's a little bit different. But Space Duel wouldn't be a terrible one to start with, to be honest with you. Of course, we grouped Joust and Stargate together because they're kind of similar. They're both Williams games. They both use that multi-board setup with the LED that tells you what's wrong, which is really nice. I like both Justin Stargate. So again, not a bad place to start, but if you're a newbie coming into this and you see like 4 or 5 boards inside a game, you're probably going to freak out a little bit, you know, versus just seeing one board, right? And so that, you know, our thinking was that, you know, it's not that this is confusing. It's actually not that bad to troubleshoot. But it's just somebody who's coming into the hobby might say, you know, I'm looking at all these boards and it's really confusing me. If you're a pinball guy, of course it's not right? You know, you're looking at that, oh, that's easy. But anyway, so with that in mind though. Now, for those of you who have Williams games, highly recommend that you go to our website, you look up HAG 2013 seminars. There's one from a man named Ken Graham, who's a good friend of ours, who he actually worked for Williams at one point and has a troubleshooting guide that he gave us during the seminar, and you guys can download it there. It's basically the entire process he goes through to troubleshoot Williams games.
Did you guys know that was on our website?
Yeah, so I mean that's
free.
That is
Free
free.
download.
So,
Download.
but Ken Graham worked at Williams. This is a guy who worked at Williams giving you a troubleshooting guide that you can use to work on your game. So if you have a Williams game, it's got schematics. It's got everything you need. It has like where the voltages should be on every board, and so you can go through and say, oh, I'm getting that there, I'm getting that there, I'm getting that there. Wonderful. And Ken is a fantastic guy. If you guys get a chance to meet him, he's Yellow Dog on the KLOV forums for those of you who know him. So does he still work on boards, Eric?
A little bit.
So if you guys need boards repaired too, you can send them off to him as well. So, but anyway, troubleshooting guide for Williams games, highly recommend. Of course, the vast majority of the audience, Tim, agreed with our assessment.
Yeah.
Centipede was the one we'd probably go with. Atari roster, single board, so it's not as daunting. Of course, we do have the AR2 board in there, but those are pretty easy to keep on. So again, repair kits from Bob Roberts on AR boards. So highly recommend, you know, try that out and see. He didn't tell us what was wrong with any of them, so I mean, we're kind of guessing here. But if we're telling him one to start with, probably Centipede. So, okay.
We just couldn't get past we just couldn't get past they all cost $100. After that, nothing else mattered. We're just like, you spent $100, what difference does it make? They're all be wall decoration worth $100.
That's exactly correct. So again, that guy got the deal of the century. Good luck with him, and hopefully he gets all those games fixed. I mean, or if he doesn't, he passes them along. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes here before we have to kind of clear out. So we're going to take questions. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about repair, you have a game that you're working on, something that's going on, then we can definitely take a question right now from you. Any questions we don't get to, I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. You guys meet us outside after this, and we'll definitely get around to you. So,
all right.
Okay, here we go. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Say you don't have a manual for one. Can I call you guys, say, hey, can you troubleshoot it? You have the manuals for a lot of
We do not have the manuals for games, but the manuals for almost every game are posted online now. It's amazing how many games have been scanned and posted. And if you're starting with a game, if you're starting to troubleshoot a game, highly recommend going to the manual first. Because a lot of times the manual will tell you a lot of different troubleshooting techniques you can use.
When I first started collecting, one of the first things I wanted was a manual for every game. I do highly recommend that if you can and you have access to get the manual for your game. Having said that, I don't use the manual very often. It's kind of cool, but most of the time back in those days when they wrote the manual, they didn't know what was going to go wrong with them anyway. They just tell you what certain things are. You will get valuable information like schematics, things like that, wiring diagrams. Those help tremendously. But for the most part, most games when I go to work on them, I don't pull out a manual that often.
And since you asked the question today, I know I worked at Best Buy, but I'm giving away lovely Circuit City water bottles for people who ask questions. So I like defunct companies. So, you know, a lot of times we'll collect stuff from defunct companies. Circuit City, of course, they got bought out by Player Direct, I think. So they're not around anymore, but if anybody asks a question, we'll give you a water bottle.
One more from you.
Oh, you got one more? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I got the game, and I'm not very good at it. You know how to do all the cheat modes on the games?
No.
Absolutely not. So we're better at fixing them than we are playing them. We've always said that.
Yes.
So I mean, it is what it is. So I mean, yeah, I wish we could do better, but I got this guy in the back. I'll get to you. Yes, sir.
So you know, for the longest time, right, I've been scared of basically doing anything with vector type monitors and so forth. You know, it just seemed like, you know, I think they stopped making those things in what, like 82 or 83 or whatever that time frame is. So I've got nothing but, you know, Raspberry games in my basement. I've got like 20 of these things, but I love Tempest and some of these other ones. And I guess what are some of the things that you can do to like bulletproof a vector type chassis?
Great question. Tim, you got some stuff here for our friend? I'll give him a water bottle.
Well, how many of you here have worked on both? Okay? Now be honest. Once you worked on a few vector games, how was it after? I mean, the fear level goes down pretty quick, right? They're actually probably, some people in here will probably agree, they're probably less complicated There's less things to go wrong. So really, I mean, once you kind of get over that, it's kind of like repairing the other chassis for your first time. And doing a cap kit for the first time just seems like a daunting task, but once you've done a few of them, then it's like, you know, you could do it no problem. So let me tell you, one thing that's encouraged you, go ahead. They do have capacitors on them that can fail, but most of the time, Eric, when you say that the voltage regulators, things like that go bad on them, I mean, that's really super common and super easy because they're right there to get to. You don't have to take the thing out of the game and all this stuff. So, you know, and I've always said that I'm kind of like you. I came in that era where the games I played, a lot of my personal game room is set up a lot like the game room I played in. And it's just games that I liked. One time I had a kangaroo, somebody like, why have that goofy game? I'm like, because I like that goofy game. I used to play it at the arcade. And so, you know, once you get past that, just go ahead and probably we need to shoot some more videos on repairing those, and we'll try to up that, maybe up the list, because they're really not. In fact, they're probably less complicated. And once you get over that hump of it, and they sell kits for them, like a voltage kit or a cap kits and things like that. They sell that. So go ahead, and I would just push past that real quick, and you'll be having a vector website repair before long, because it's really not as complicated as it seems.
I was going to mention there's great troubleshooting guides on black and white vectors and color vectors on KLOV, and actual troubleshooting guides, and I highly recommend going through those. They're almost step by step. And so if you need some more resources, highly recommend those. Yes, I believe you were next here. What do you got?
So if you want to pass along Justin's email, I'd be happy to help him with the $100 games.
Yeah.
No problem. But you had mentioned kind of sound and sight with the flyback. I noticed when my flyback went out, I smelled it pretty quickly as well.
Yeah.
So that real strong ozone odor very quickly came from the game.
Exactly.
And, you know, you hear it and see it as well, though. So.
It's more than just sight, like we were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I try to teach. You know, one of the things that I do is I teach young people all the time. They always put somebody with me every day. I got to teach some new guy on how to work on games. And he'll see me, I'll close my eyes sometimes. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, smelling and listening. And as you get to work on games, try to hone in those senses, those other things that, you know, and feel. Sometimes just by feeling something, of course, watch where you're putting your hands, right? But I mean, sometimes just by those other senses, you'll learn that. And the smell, I mean, how many times, you know, they'll be like, in my world, it's like, hey man, the skee ball lane won't work, and I get about 10 feet from it and I smell a burnt solenoid, you know. I'm like, well, go get a solenoid, go get the ball trough. Why? Oh, it's bad. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You know, there's nothing like that smell. If you smell electronic smell, trust your senses. Good time to turn off your game as quick as possible and start troubleshooting.
Jonathan,
Absolutely.
what's some tips you can give us on like preventive maintenance? Some simple stuff we can do to prevent problems.
Never ever clean your game. Because the day you clean it, it's going to quit working. I'm joking, of course, but seriously, if you guys ever put transmission fluid, they talk you into that at the oil change place. Hey man, you never had your transmission flush, you change out your transmission, what happens? Transmission starts going out. It seems that way sometimes, but really, this is where a manual will help. How many have ever seen a lot of, especially in the newer games, manuals will come with, this is something that should be done every once in a while. Pinball games especially, maybe a little bit more preventive maintenance. Look for areas that I would follow the manual. Don't just go spraying WD-40 and grease everywhere, but certain things need a little bit of grease or lubricant, things like that. But by all means, if you stay on top of it, I do recommend that you do clean off. I know one time we worked on a game at a local putt-putt place, and she said, man, the screen just, I mean, no colors and everything, and I'm telling her, oh, we'll probably come, so I'm bringing a cap kit and all this stuff. I looked at her screen, took the mirror off, and took a towel and just wiped the dirt off, and all of a sudden these bright colors come through, and she's like, how'd you fix that so quick? And I showed her a dirty towel. I was like, there you go. So we do recommend that, like canned air is good to blow out some parts and things like that. Check your voltage. You know, that's something that when you're occasionally you know, voltage will drop, and so you might need to tweak that a little bit. Turn your voltage up a little bit, clean them out. For the most part, though, you know, just be careful where you're sticking your hand. Make sure the power's off.
Yeah, and if you have an EM pinball machine, no WD-40, please. So anyway, what do we got here?
Is there any easy way to tell if a monitor is medium resolution if you don't have a chassis that came without the chassis in it?
Well, you can go to, well, you find out what kind of monitor it is. Bob Roberts has a really good site that says, "What's my monitor?" You guys ever use that? It's like sometimes by the picture. You send us a picture, sometimes we can tell you. Most of the time, if you put a medium res game in a standard game, a medium res monitor in a standard game, what's going to happen? Double images, right? And stuff's going to look crazy. You get crazy screen looking like double images and stuff. That sometimes is a good indicator. Most of the time, like Jonathan said, we use that. Go to KLOV, it'll tell you what kind of raster is supposed to be in that game. So I don't necessarily go by the monitor as much as I go by what is the game putting out. Then I can try to troubleshoot and see, well, this monitor I got, is it that? And of course,
I meant if you have
got a
two
monitor.
just,
if you have a tube just in there,
sitting there with no chassis whatsoever,
Right.
not in the game,
exactly.
how can you tell if it's a
You
medium?
can't. Yeah, it's right. You can't. Well, you just have to hook it up, and well, you got to have a chassis that goes with it. That's where it goes into. I know there's a couple good sites out there that talk about how to read that and check the ohms and different things. I normally don't do a lot of that, and but there are guys that do, and they got some good steps. And if I knew them, I just follow them like they do, and when we check them and stuff. But for most of the part, you're not going to know. I don't know.
Sometimes you can look up the tube number. I mean, it depends. So if the tube is marked,
Yes.
try to look up the model number and see if it's on there. Was there somebody in the back? Anybody? No. Hang on, I get you.
So in the vein of, don't clean your thing, I bought a JAMA board and I have an Arcanite cocktail. And so I was like, oh, I want to see if maybe I can hook this board up just to the monitor that was in my cocktail. And so I was trying to get into the cocktail and learn a little about it. And it's one of these cocktails with the side panel. It's not the one where the whole game unfolds like in your video.
Right.
It's just where like the top flips open and like a side panel just drops down for the board. And so you can't really see really well in it. So I was taking a whole bunch of pictures and I disconnected the monitor. And when I hooked it back up, it didn't come up right away. So it's like you're saying, don't mess with something that's working. So right now my Arcanite sound doesn't work. And I think what I had done was put the connector on, shift it over, and left one pin empty, and then put it back on. So at some point I need to try to figure out what's wrong with my Arcanite sound.
Yeah, and we do have a video on troubleshooting sound issues, of course. I mean, that's something we'd highly recommend. But yeah, that's rough. I mean, you're going to move games, you're going to clean games, and you're going to probably have some problems when you do that. But I mean, it's just part of having games. And in fact, it's something we always say: if you have games, get comfortable working on them, or have a lot of money to get them repaired. Because I mean, like Tim mentioned, we got a question just the other day: $600 repair for really what should have been probably $100. I mean, for a repair standpoint. But I mean, I understand like people who have this knowledge now and are comfortable with it. It's hard not to charge a lot because my time's valuable. I've got a family, and if any moment I'm spending fixing games, I'm spending away from my wife, my dog, my kids, whatever. So I mean, sometimes I charge a lot, but it's part of it. It's just part of it. So I understand, but I mean, you're gonna do it. You'll figure it out. And like I said, check out the video post and everything like that. It should be good. We have time for one more if we have a quick one, real quick, Johnny.
Yeah. We talked last night about like pole position. You need some other games you said don't buy.
We didn't say don't buy. When we say don't buy, we said that hard to keep working, I believe was the premium phrase. Pole position is a great game. How many people have pole positions? See, look at this.
Okay.
Pole position is a great game. Easy to get working, hard to keep working. That's the key.
What's some other games that
we talked last night, we said Tato games. So Zookeeper, Kicks, those kind of things are definitely. Tim, is there anything else that we didn't talk about last night that's hard to keep working? Baby Pac-Man, obviously, we talked about that. Kind of a hybrid machine, though, like we talked about. Anything that's hard to keep working?
Well, everything is got its limits. One thing I would highly recommend, a lot of it depends on where you put the game. In your basement or in your house. Make sure that in Texas, I don't know about you guys, every time the air conditioner comes on, the lights will dim. We have huge power surges, so I highly recommend, I'm not talking about a power strip. I'm talking about a surge protector, you know, something like that actually does surge protection. Things like that will help. Fans in your games. I'm big on installing fans, airflow in and out, get it circulating and going through there, both directions in my opinion. Those type of things will help. And so any game, I think we talked about this last night, none of the games we're playing were ever meant to last more than a couple of years. They were made to do one thing, what's that?
Make money.
Make money and go on and get another game, right? And so even when they started coming out with kits, that was the idea, just when they make money, swap another board, right? So the fact that any of them are still working today is pretty amazing. So those are some things that you can do to help prolong that. I want to know who here is the newest newbie?
I was just about to ask that. Anybody here like never fixed a game? Never fixed a game?
Yeah, I don't think
I guess over here.
All right.
Tim, what about multi-page?
You're the big one.
Multi-page.
So this is an electrician's toolkit here. We've got screwdrivers, we've got strippers, we've got everything you need there. So
Now let's go fix the monitor.
that's right. That's this monitor. So.
Don't trust her, she'll try to shock you, I've been there.
Okay, so we want to say, what now? Oh, yeah.
She said she's been shocked by helping him fix the monitor, said she's my Jonah.
So we want to say thank you. Yeah, that's right. We want to say thank you guys for coming today. We really do appreciate you coming to the seminar. Coming to the Southern Fried Game Room Expo, hopefully you get to play tons of games. We do have one more thing in the vein of Steve Jobs. It is kind of important, and this has to do more people who might listen to our podcast than anything. So this is something me and Tim have been talking about a long time, so we're going to make our final announcement, then we're going to let you guys go. Really what it comes down to is that me and Tim are very busy, like you mentioned. We both have day jobs. We've been doing arcade repair tips for 8 years, and it's been a really long time. And so coming up pretty soon here, we're going to no longer be doing our question and answer podcast. The podcast itself has been great. And basically it's a radio show, for those of you who don't know. It's like a radio show where we take these questions, just like we did today, and we answer them. And so we have a lot of fun doing it. It's great. If you guys are on long commutes, it's like great for that. Yes. And they're easy to start, pick up anywhere. But we've done almost 60, over 60, if you count special episodes. But at this point, we're kind of, you know, we're kind of to a point, I guess, Tim, where we're going to kind of not phase it out necessarily, because it's actually going to morph into something different.
Got good news.
That's right. That's the bad news. The good news is that it will be continuing. Our good friend who's in the back, Eric, come on up here. Our good friend who's in the back is actually going to start doing it with his friend Chris. And they're going to start probably in August. Okay, so the thing about Eric and Chris is they're a lot smarter than we are. So I think their input is really going to be valuable to all of y'all who listen. So hopefully those of you who do listen to the radio show, or if you haven't, you should, you continue to tune in for Eric and Chris, because I think they're going to do an outstanding job with all the questions that we get.
One thing that we are going to add is that Eric brings a lot more pinball experience. So we're announcing this not only to you guys, but also via the web and our taping. So to let you guys know, please start sending in those pinball questions now that we're going to step aside. We're actually going to take our podcast up a notch in experience and in knowledge. And Eric, we're going to let you just say a few words, and thank you for asking, for doing this, because it's a really high-paid job, and we had a lot of applicants. And we had tons of applicants, and it was hard to make this choice. You have to appreciate what we've done in order, and love what this type of thing, to be able to do this, and we wouldn't trust it to just anybody's.
Before you get, I'm going to let Eric speak here in a second, but I do want to mention that me and Tim are not going away. One of the things, we have not released YouTube content forever, guys. I mean, we just hadn't, except for the live stuff. So what we're going to do is, me and him, we're still going to be a part of the live broadcast, of course. So we always broadcast from festivals and things. We're going to continue to do that, but we're going to start doing more YouTube stuff.
We're going to shoot more videos.
We're going to shoot more videos, because that's what we think that everybody wants. Yeah. And so Eric and Chris are going to do an absolutely fantastic job. We hope you guys listen to the podcast continuing going forward. But we feel like we've gotten away from what was our initial focus, which was videos. And so to kind of branch out, we're going to let Eric and Chris take the questions, which we think are awesome, because we get great questions from you guys. We really do. I mean, these are fun. Like some of the ones we've seen today are fun. But they really are serious, and we love taking the time to do them. And I know that Eric and Chris, like Tim, they're going to do it. They're going to knock this out of the park. You guys are going to enjoy them. But what it really comes down to is that our bread and butter always was kind of YouTube videos. That's how we got started. And so me and Tim are going to go back to that. but we didn't want the podcast to go away. We wanted somebody to take it over. And when we contacted Eric, he was thrilled. And so we're so excited to have him on board our team. Eric, thank you for being here. Everybody welcome him, and say a few words for the audience.
Well, I have no acceptance speech for this award that you're giving me, and on top of that, my voice is kind of blown out from last night, so I really don't have much to add to it. But thank you for giving us this opportunity. I think we'll have a good time with it. So, once again, I really don't have anything to add to this, nor was I prepared to.
Well, that's right. They're probably going to start July, August timeframe. So we might do. I think me and Tim talked about doing one more. So we'll do one more podcast, and then going forward, it'll be Eric and Chris. We'll be giving them questions from the same questions you guys send us, and then we're going to start up an email for them, so you guys can email them directly. Like Tim mentioned, Eric, a wealth of experience, not just with arcade games, but pinball machines as well, and then Chris as well. I mean, how many years of experience do you think you have between the two of you guys?
Oh, well, I've been I got my first machine, I thought about it yesterday, 28 years ago. So, and Chris has been, 20 years. So, between the two of us, entirely too much time put into this hobby.
So, I mean, you're talking about a wealth of knowledge and experience. So we want to welcome Eric and Chris to the team. Hopefully, guys, if you guys listen, or you're not listening now, you should listen. They're going to do a really great job. Thank you guys so much for coming. And if you guys want to buy a DVD, talk to us in the hallway. We're going to go out here. Thank you so much. Had an absolutely fantastic time.
Yeah, I got one of those little